Hi, I'm Harrison, CTO Greatwave AI and also co-founder of Greatwave AI. And today I'm doing a freestyle whiteboard session on the test and operate phases of the agent lifecycle process, if you like. So just to cover off where we are as an industry, where the talk is, what the focus is really on the build. We've got a lot of tools and processes and frameworks essentially offering go and build lots of different agents using our tool. Some are effective at building one, some can't then stretch to two, some are good at three, some can orchestrate in certain ways, blah, blah, whatever it may be. But we're very much focused on building agents, realizing that actually before this, just using the model on its own with some prompts wasn't good enough. So here we are now. So build great, fantastic. Once you've built agents, what you got to do then, of course, is test them out. So this is the next phase, and after tests, assuming it goes well, you've got to operate it. Now, the process approach, tooling, skills are very thin on the ground in these two spaces. So I'm just going to cover off in this session what to think about. So in tests, what we have here is basically from our agents, from each one, we have an output, and then we have a global output from all the agents working together. So we have a singular and a global. And case by case, we want to test some of the singular ones. Maybe this one, for example, goes and gets some data, and we need to make sure it's got the right data, whatever it may be. And then global, obviously, we need to be able to test the input of all of them together, and all of them not necessarily work, not all being called at runtime, but the end-to-end flow from a user or system perspective. So how do we do this? We need a way of measuring this agent. Lots of different schools of thoughts. Where we land at Greatwave and where I land is golden data set. The notion of a set of inputs and outputs that we can measure against that are known, good, and have been validated by humans. That's the top tier, if you like. The other thing we need is volume. Without volume, we have one input and output. Great. It's not really going to cover the volume of inputs that may come in from the users or whatever it systems that when we are live. And through this process, we'll learn a lot more about the agent responses. We may need to go backwards into here, for example, make changes. One of the common changes that you'll see is constraint. So as an example, we may go, cool, we created these agents and they happy path, they give me the right answer. But when a user or system does this, it gives us the wrong answer, or it says something it shouldn't have done, or whatever. So we want to implement constraints on this test pack, and that will go back into the build phase, and then obviously we'll come back here. There could be constraints, there could be changes, there could be whatever. But you can quickly see there needs to be a very fluid process, and one that works with volume between the build and test phase. And that's something that has begun to be sort of realized through the industry. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. In operations, we go live, great. Everyone's had a party and everyone's very happy. And then day after, LLM vendor says, new model, old model explodes in 2 seconds, whatever. I'm being flippant, but reality is, compared to traditional software, the models don't last very long, and we could have spent months and months getting here. So again, we rely on our test pack, we rely on testing process, our packer technology, but to go through and say we're going to change all these agents to different models or model, and we need to test it all over again to make sure our golden data set is correct and operate at the same volume. And we might get new constraints, we might need to make new changes. So this relationship between build and test is really, really important from both a process perspective and a technology perspective. And tooling at the moment, if we're honest, has not quite got there. There isn't the test breadth available to deal with the operational realities of agents in live. Just a quick note on Greatwave AI, we have something called Test Bench, which, as you may imagine, is able to deal with this cycle here. Version control testing with golden data sets you can upload yourself or create from previous interactions, inputs, outputs, deals with how much volume you want, and you can run it with a few clicks at the bottom. And the purpose is so that we can mature our test process to be able to operate more effectively. I hope you found this useful. If there are any questions, please do get in touch. I'm Harrison at Greatwave AI. Thank you. So I said at the end there, this is 10 minutes later, is there any questions? And I had my own questions. I'm watching this back. Two of those, well, the two questions. One was about human feedback. Obviously, still key part of the test process. Human feedback works well in sort of proof of concept scenarios, and the challenge with it is this volume bit here. We don't often have limited volumes when it comes to the possibilities of what an agent may respond, because we want that as part of the value proposition for our use case. So with large teams and dedication, it can work, but ultimately the volume challenge needs a technical solution a lot of the time. And that's why the test process needs to have, or could have, well, we'd recommend having a golden data set and a flow around that which supports this process here. The other element that I sort of briefly touched on was do that proof of concept phase. The process should always be to that proof of concept phase first. And if we don't have a golden data set, because the reality is no use cases often don't have that, then we can use the proof of concept data as the golden data set. And that can be very useful, especially where we've got feedback in that golden data set. So this is good, this is bad. And again, in Greatwave AI, we have that each interaction for an agent is given a thumbs up or thumbs down. So we get a picture in the proof of concept of we did these 200, 300, 500,000, whatever it is, agent interactions, and here's the good ones. We can take that straight away with a few clicks of the golden data set. I thought that would be worth mentioning since we built the features specifically to do that.